Good morning, friends, and welcome to the main object big book study of Alcoholics Anonymous. And you're going to have to bear with me because, in my zeal to get started this morning, I did not bring up the preamble. So I'm going to do that now. And am I in the right? Yes. Where are the categories? Okay, there we are. And I'll just read it. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety. So thank you all for that. And we are, just FYI, we're having a little technical glitch this morning. Zoom is not allowing us for some reason to create co-hosts. So Rich is our friend Rich R is the host this morning. Excuse me. But what that means is I am not able to screen share. So that's why you didn't see the preamble and that and in that confusion, that's also why I now realize I didn't identify myself. So good morning, everyone. I am an alcoholic. My name is David. So and I'm going to ask you now to join me in inviting God into this meeting. If we can all join in on the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you. Okay. As I think most of you know, we are a line by line big book study, and we break the text down into 5 categories here, and those categories are, as Rich just posted, questions, directions and explanations, promises, warnings, and history. And the first 4 of those paragraphs, in order to better understand the text and to share it with others, I highlight in specific colors. You can choose your own if you'd like, but the colors listed are the ones that I chose. And as we go along today, I'll make mention of that as well. And so our format is I will share till about 7 or so, and then we'll open it up for discussion and questions and all that kind of thing. And just so everyone is aware, the meeting is being recorded, just audio. However, I do stop the recording after my part is done so that individual comments are not part of the recording. And the reason we do that is we have an archive on YouTube of all of our meetings. And if you look in the chat, you will see that link. In addition, I should add, since I'm doing sort of announcements right now, that if you'd like to get a weekly text reminder for this meeting that we send out every Saturday afternoon at 12:30, all you need to do is leave me a private chat message with your cell phone number, and I will add you to the list. So today we are on page 18, we are in There Is a Solution, which we started last week, and we made it right up to the point of the paragraph that ends psychiatrist, the psychiatrist and the doctor. So now we are starting on a little below the midpoint of the page where it says, but the ex-problem drinker. And so I'm going to jump in and just one thing. I will, before I start the reading, just to summarize what we're going to cover today. At the beginning of this chapter, what we read last week, we saw that Bill shared two critical bits of information that are intended for really both the suffering alcoholic and the recovered alcoholic, but and that is, first, we of Alcoholics Anonymous have an effective solution to your problem, and two, we are safe. We are not going to judge you. We are not going to order you around. We are going to welcome you warmly. Now, in today's section, Bill proposes two critical ideas about how that solution is delivered. And the first critical idea is we'll deliver the solution through the reading of the book and through the sharing of the principles in this book. And both verbally and this is the second critical piece of information. How we will carry this message is through how we demonstrate the principles of this program, the ones detailed in the book, in our own lives. So moving forward then, we're starting out, Bill talked about just to recap, in the section prior to this, he talked briefly about how difficult it is for wives and psychiatrists and parents to talk to alcoholics about their problem. And now he's going to reveal why it is easier for us as people in recovery to talk to the alcoholic. And that is, but the ex-problem drinker who has found this solution, who is properly armed with the facts about himself, can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. And that, for me, is critical direction. So I have that in my own book, all in green. And the next sentence, though, I have double highlighted. I have it both in green and pink because it is both, for me, direction and a warning. Until such an understanding is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished. So what exactly is going on here? What he's saying is, now this, remember, this section is, or this chapter, forgive me, is written for the person still suffering. However, as we mentioned last week, we sort of have to wear two hats when we're reading this. We have to think of, okay, what is the new suffering alcoholic going to think when they read this? But then the other hat we have to put on is, because I think Bill intended it for us as well, is the established AA member. How are they going to use this? Or how are they going to apply it? So I think for me, the first key piece that jumps out is the key phrase is that properly armed with the facts about himself or herself. And what that says to me is that in order to effectively reach other people, I have to know what my problem is. And on the one hand, it's easy to say, well, my problem is alcohol. And that is true. But I think what Bill means there is when he talks about properly armed about the facts about himself, what he's talking about is someone who has gone through the steps, especially the inventory steps, and it understands the exact nature of his wrongs. Because what we tend to find, or what I found when I did those inventory steps, is that alcohol, while it caused a lot of problems, it wasn't my underlying problem. It wasn't my cause and condition. My causes and conditions were much deeper. They were rooted in my character defects. And that's what I needed to know. And that's part of what I needed to convey to that suffering alcoholic. So, what he's saying is that these facts about yourself are the primary tool that allow us to help others. The other piece that really jumped out at me was the last sentence in this paragraph. Until such an understanding is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished. I think there's a dual meaning there. And I think that dual meaning is, let me just put it this way. When you read that sentence, the question I would pose to you, until such an understanding is reached by whom? And what I mean by that is, on the one hand, until such an understanding of my exact nature of my wrongs is, until that understanding is gained by the new person, that new person isn't going to be properly armed with the facts to start this journey and to understand their disease. So little or nothing can be accomplished for that person. At the same time, as a recovering alcoholic, recovering, pick your syntax, as a person in recovery, little or no good is going to come to me until I understand the exact nature of my wrongs. And we could talk at length about why that is, but we'll put a bookmark in that, because this is a theme we're going to come back to again and again and again, is the need to really have a clear understanding of what and who we are in order to be able to fully receive God's grace. And so this next section, I have this next paragraph, which is at the bottom of 18, I have as both, for most of it, I have as both a direction, so it's in green, and a promise or a reward in blue. So I have it double highlighted. And what Bill is talking about in this paragraph, we'll see, is basically he's laying out the conditions necessary in order to A, effectively carry the message, and B, be a channel of God's grace. Now, those two things aren't separate, because it is only through God, because remember, no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. So how do we help relieve others' alcoholism? Not by us doing the work, but by us clearing ourselves enough to be an effective channel of His grace in the lives of other people. So here we go. I think this is probably the longest sentence in the big book. That the man who is making the approach has had the same difficulty, that he obviously knows what he is talking about, that his whole deportment shouts at the new prospect that he is a man with a real answer, that he has no attitude of holier than thou, nothing whatever accept the sincere desire to be helpful, that there are no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no people to please, no lectures to be endured. Now, up to that point, I have it double highlighted. And this next little section I have as just direction and critical direction. These are conditions we have found most effective. So up till now, again, we can apply that two-hat principle, because what Bill is saying here is, to you, the suffering alcoholic, here's what you can expect or find when you entrust us to give you the solution to your suffering. And on the flip side, to those of us carrying the message, what he is saying is, hey gang, here's how you need to act when you are conducting yourselves with other alcoholics. And this last sentence in this paragraph at the top of 19 I have as a promise. After such an approach, many take up their beds and walk again. What I would say is, especially if you're newer to helping others, that I think we have to take, we have to put into context when he says many take up their beds. Because remember, that doesn't mean every person you carry the message to is going to get sober and be enthusiastic about the program. As a matter of fact, we'll see when they talk later on about many distressing failures they encountered. So while many people did take up their beds, they approached many, many more, a good number of whom did not. Not everyone's going to want this message. The next paragraph, the first full paragraph on 19, is all in direction for me, all in green, and what he's saying here, I'm just going to summarize before I jump into it, is being paid for this would not make it more effective. It would not be more effective if we, as the recovering person, were paid for this. What makes us more effective is how we practice this, not just in AA, but outside of AA. And we'll see at the end, he almost contradicts that first sentence, but not. But let's read it. None of us make a sole vacation of this I've got vacation on the mind. None of us make a sole vocation of this work, nor do we think its effectiveness would be increased if we did. We feel that the elimination of our drinking is but a beginning. Now, those two sentences may seem to not go well together. Like, what do they have to do with each other? And what they're saying is, what Bill's saying is, this is what would not make us effective. However, this, on the other hand, the second sentence, is what will make us more effective. And that is the attitude that the elimination of our drinking is but a beginning. A much more important demonstration of our principles lies before us in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs. All of us spend much of our spare time in the sort of effort which we are going to describe. A few are fortunate enough to be so situated that they can give nearly all their time to the work. Now, at first blush, that last sentence may seem to contradict the first one. Remember, the first one says, none of us make a sole vacation. There I go again. A sole vocation of this work. Vacation on the mind. Um, and then at the last sentence, he says, a few of us are fortunate enough to be so situated that they can give nearly all their time to the work. The key word there in that last sentence is give, giving all our time. So we are not being paid for it. Okay, the next sentence is a promise. So I have that in blue. If we keep on the way we are going, there is little doubt that much good will result, but the surface of the problem would hardly be scratched. And then what he's talking about is the scope of what we have before us. And so that first sentence is a promise or a reward, and the next sentence, however, is a warning. Those of us who live in large cities are overcome by the reflection that close by hundreds are dropping into oblivion every day. And then a promise. Many could recover, if they had the opportunity we have enjoyed. You could also call that direction. I mean, I have it as just a promise, but it is direction, meaning as someone who has experienced this program, we are uniquely positioned to address that problem. And then we end out the paragraph with a question. How then shall we present that which has been so freely given us? And I think sometimes we don't spend enough time talking about or educating ourselves and others on exactly how to carry the message. For me, I kind of operated, I did not realize this till much later on, but I operated under this sort of unspoken assumption that since I experienced the AA process, I automatically knew how to carry it to others. And what I've since realized is that's kind of like saying, because I have flown on an airplane, I am now qualified to fly the airplane. Or, because I've stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, I can do surgery. And but what this is saying is, no, we need, and that's why we have a whole paragraph on working with others. And so how then shall we present that which is so freely given us? And the rest of this page I have as direction or explanation. So it's in green. And this next sentence in this third paragraph here, I think is critical. He's asking a question. How shall we present that which has been so freely given us? We have concluded to publish an anonymous volume setting forth the problem as we see it. Let's not lose the impact and importance of what he is saying there. He's saying, how do we do this? And what he's saying is, it's in the book. We follow the book. We live the book. And I think that's what he is, it's clear that that's what he's trying to convey. We have concluded to publish an anonymous volume setting forth the problem as we see it. We shall bring to the task our combined experience and knowledge. And I think that there are two ways to see that sentence. I think on the one hand, when he talks about, because because he's talking about the combined knowledge and experience. So he's talking about the knowledge and experience of the first 100. And if you read the history of the writing of the book, even though Bill was the primary author, he was working tirelessly to integrate the perspective and the experience, the very diverse perspectives and experience of those first 100. Because even though it was just a small group, there were pretty broad variations, especially between the New York group and the Akron group. But anyway, what he's saying is the combined experience. Now, the second way to see that is also when he says combined experience, he's talking about the experience in the book plus our own experience. Because remember what Ebby shared with Bill was not just the principles of recovery. Ebby shared his own story. Bill already knew most of it, but he shared the details. And the last sentence in this paragraph, this should suggest a useful program for anyone concerned with a drinking problem. Just revalidating the power of carrying the message in that way. And then some may see parts of this next paragraph as a warning. I just have it as direction because it's clear direction from me on the attitude and the practice I need to bring in sharing this message. Of necessity, there will have to be discussion of matters medical, psychiatric, social, and religious. We are aware that these matters are, from their very nature, controversial. I think that is a diplomatic way of Bill saying, in order to help you get sober, in order to carry the message of sobriety, it's necessary we discuss things about which you and other people have strong opinions. And what Bill is doing now, I think it's masterful, because what Bill says is he validates the importance of talking about these areas, but then he gives us direction for diffusing strong opinions. Nothing would please us so much as to write a book which would contain no basis for contention or argument. We shall do our utmost to achieve this ideal. And this is the goalpost right here, this next section. Because for me, this is the real heart of carrying the message. Not just to the suffering alcoholic, but to fellow AA members in meetings. Most of us sense that real tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints and a respect for their opinions are attitudes which make us more useful to others. I'm going to pause right there for a second. Real tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints and a respect for their opinions. He's saying that's the key to being effective. So what that means is, I think that kind of frames it this way for us. Can I convey the power and rightness of the AA principles without making other people's beliefs, opinions, or actions wrong? And I will say that what this means is that it asks me, so am I referring to people who don't drink as earthlings? Am I in any way talking about how the earthlings don't get it? Or am I any way talking about how inept or um, I'll just say idiotic I think people are who are drinking or destroying themselves with alcohol? And what Bill is saying here is that kind of talk limits our effectiveness. That intolerance, that disrespect. I mean, would you say it to that person's face? Hopefully you would. But still, if we are if we are carrying that, we are spiritually blocking ourselves from the power that would help that person. And last but not least, what I think is probably the most important bit of direction in our entire reading today. Over on the top of 20, our very lives as ex problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs. And why that's an important piece of direction for me is I have to, I don't know about anybody else here, but I have to work all 12 of our suggested 12 steps in order to even attempt to live what this sentence is talking about. Because remember, what's my underlying problem? Selfishness, self centeredness, the bondage of self. So, with that, I've gone 4 minutes over, only 4 minutes this time, so I'm doing better, a little bit better. So I'm going to throw out there, and I think Rich may have posted these in the chat, is that 4 questions for reflection, and, or excuse me, 3. The first one is do I believe I am properly armed with the facts about myself? Why or why not? Second, do I lean on the big book and or its message when helping others? Third, am I able to practice, quote, real tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints, unquote? And thank you, Rich. And with that, I am going to open it up, and the first